So a couple things that have come up in the last two presentations. One of them was universities are financially strapped at the moment, making decisions to drop programs because of Title IX. This presentation may be an answer. It has been for a lot of universities that have adopted it. It's a little bit of outside of the box thinking. I don't like the term, but it is. So I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, and we'll linger on some of the areas that I think are really worth consideration. So universities today are competing for every student. With online school and all the rest of the stuff, getting students to sit in the seat, in the classroom, face to face, that is our challenge. And administrators have got to figure out a way to make my university different from the other university so that students want to come to us. Traditionally, they were using student athletics. Come to our university, you get paid more. Those kind of things. But one of the other things that they're also looking at, if you're looking at university as purely a business, they want to minimize discounts and scholarships. Obviously, the less discounts and scholarships, the higher full price tuition, the more students come to my university. It's a numbers game. They want to increase their ROI, cut down on your expenses and your discounts. Traditional athletics as recruiting, you're lost in the noise. All right. Every university has an MBA program. Every university has a sports management program. Every university has a kinesiology. They all got the same things. How are we different? That's the marketing question. So the proposal is rugby is the fastest growing sport in the United States for men and women. And I'll harp on that a couple times. Men and women. It's the only contact sport for women. Rugby programs can create that differentiation. We're going to show you how. So number one, exactly the same rules, and we call them laws in rugby. Laws and equipment for men and women. I coach a college team and a youth team, and we have 9-year-old boys, girls, all the way through adults, all practicing together. No difference in equipment, no difference in the laws, no difference in the way you coach. Everything is the same. There's two formats, 15 aside, 7 aside. The field is the same size as a soccer field, but you have either 15 on the field with a 40-minute half, 10-minute half time, 40 minutes, or 7 on the field with 7, 2, and 7. So very short games. 15s is played single game on a day. 7s is played in tournament style, 1 day or 2 days, anywhere from 4 to 6 games over a weekend. 7s is the Olympic sport. Both have a World Cup. The 7s World Cup is this year in South Africa in September. And in 2019, the 15s World Cup was in Japan. The US women's is ranked 6th in 15s, men 18th. 7s, women are ranked 4th, men are ranked 4th. Interesting statistic, the women's 15s team won the very first World Cup held in 1991. I met some of the ladies that played on the team, and they had to raise their own money, and their jerseys they actually bought at Walmart and drew the numbers on the back. and they had to pay their own way to get to England to go to the World Cup, and they won. In 1920 and 1924, the US 15 men's won gold in the Olympics. The only two times that 15s was in the World Cup. So rugby is not new to the US. Unfortunately, it has not been marketed or developed correctly. Women's is an emerging NCAA sport. Its governing body is NIRA. Men's is only a club sport. The reason it's struggling to get out of emerging status is NCAA doesn't understand rugby. Their laws and their rules in NCAA are counter to rugby. Rugby is played in a 7s and 15s. NCAA, one of their basic rules is you may only have 16 competitions per year. In a sevens tournament, you may play 6 games. That's 6 competitions, 3 tournaments, your season's over. You haven't even played 15s yet. We play from September through early August, 11 months. It's a year-round sport. So there's 2 essential sports, 7s and 15s. NCAA lumps them together. So it's very difficult. If we started a team in Texas, the nearest NCAA team we could play, Charlotte, North Carolina. Now you have to fly all the way to Charlotte to play 1 game, and you've got to play 6 NCAA competitions to qualify. Otherwise, you get fined. NCAA doesn't understand rugby, and it's not been adopted very well. There is research on this. Back in 14, 4 guys at Clemson wrote a paper on the growth model for college rugby. It was presented and never really went anywhere. Justin Hickey is currently, I think, the head coach at the the Naval Academy in Annapolis. One of the key quotes out of it is, rugby is the fastest growing sport in the United States with 1.13 million people playing in 2010. Has been growing since. Back then, we had twice as many rugby players in the United States as the whole of England. And they've been playing since 1823. We have a lot of rugby players here, but nobody knows about it. Anecdotally, rugby players just want to play. Give us a piece of concrete out back, we'll practice there. We don't care what size the grass is, we don't need a fancy field, we don't get scholarships, we never do, so if you gave us $500, we're happy. They typically academically qualify because it's not a varsity sport. You can't give athletic scholarship. So rugby is a sport where the student athlete comes to the university academically qualified to go to the university and play sport, not play sport and go to university. Big problem we have the athletes and then we have the students. We want more of the students. They tend to follow more professional tracks. And we see this from the universities that are top contenders in rugby at the moment. Life University is one of the top universities for rugby. They don't have football. They are the top chiropractic university in the world. They offer scholarships for people to play rugby, and they attract a lot of rugby players. Lindenwood, UCLA have a great team, so it's not a small program. A lot of big schools have it. They tend to stay all 4 years because they are typically loyal to their coach. And that's the important point I'll touch on in a bit. And they graduate on time. No 5-year, 4-year degrees or 7-year like Tommy Boy. What's the movie? Come on, Angie. 7 years, what they normally call doctors. So the proposal is rugby will attract 120 students by year 5, roughly 50 women and roughly 70 men. And that is simply because there's fewer women playing and more men playing, so the pools are bigger. Queen's University in Charlotte has 60 women and 50 men. They are an NCAA Division II team and started in 2017 and won the national championship in 2019. So they move up and qualify very quickly if recruited well and coached well. The budget for a program fully developed, coaches, travel, equipment, everything is around $360,000 a year. So it's not an expensive sport. You play it on the soccer field if the soccer people will let you use their field. Women's rugby positively impacts Title IX. More opportunities for women to participate. But because men's is just a club, it doesn't negatively affect. So you can introduce rugby to your campus and bring 120 students, bring better parity between men's and women's opportunities, even though you've got more additional opportunities for men, you're not negatively affecting your Title IX. So that is a very key aspect. Some of the analysis that we've done have shown that there's numerous universities just in Texas that are lawsuits waiting to happen. 150, 160 opportunities out of parity. They have to drop their entire football team and another team just to get even. This will help bring it back. It won't fix it, it'll help even that. The way we propose doing it is, it's a big picture program. One of the big challenges in the United States right now is the guy goes to college, he plays rugby for 4 years, he finds rugby in college, he gets all excited, he graduates, he goes back to Iowa, there's no rugby team in his town. Now he's a 4-year veteran with marginal skills, and he becomes the no-ball coach. And he becomes a very marginal coach, teaching new players bad habits. It's not a case of needing better athletes. The United States is a hotbed for hyper athletes. We have the best athletes anywhere in the world. What we have to do is have better coaches. They'll fix their athletes. We need to fix the coaches. So we need to coach development camps. Let the school host coach development camps. Bring the coaches there from their local clubs, develop the coaches. So now you're doing some coach development and you're touching your community. Player identification, essentially combines, going into the schools and saying, in the spring, your football players aren't playing football, come try out for rugby. Let's go through a combine and see what your skill sets are. Do they match those for rugby? If they do, we can help them stay in shape. Rugby is very high conditioning, significantly more than most. Now, a lot of people are probably gonna, I'll segue slightly here. Most people say rugby is football without pads. Completely the wrong comparison. Rugby is soccer and basketball with tackling while running a Spartan race. You're down on the ground, you're back on your feet, you're running, you're tackling, you're on your feet, you're running and you're tackling, you're doing it for 40 minutes. There's no timeouts. If somebody gets injured, the first aid come onto the field, the game continues, you've got 30 seconds. If you can't fix them, take them off. We continue. If the game happens to go where the player is, we'll stop. Fix him, get him fixed, get him back on, or send on a substitute. Once he leaves, he can't come back. Very tough. It's very fast. So we need to look at the conditioning of players. Now we can transition players. Most players that come and try rugby, I tell them, give it 2 practices. You'll either love it or hate it. It's either for you or it's not. There's no in between. Rugby is, that's the way it is. But there's a lot of players that are finding the sport and absolutely loving it because it's something that they weren't given an opportunity to do. I have a lot of young kids that come to our program in Abilene and they homeschooled and their parents say, well, we went to try out for baseball, but they didn't make the team. We went to try out for soccer, but they didn't make the team. You don't try out for rugby, you try us, we don't try you. Come play, we'll find something for you to do. We got kids that are autistic, they come and play with us and they have a great time. The adults learn to deal with a weaker player. They learn to pass better to a weaker player. The weaker player can't pass as far, so I learned to compensate for that weaker player's inability to pass far, so I close the gap and I become a more attentive player because I'm playing with a weaker player. It teaches the better players how to be better as well as coach. They develop other players. Local youth programs, our college kids will go into the local community. There is a full curriculum available from the national governing body for elementary, middle school, and high school PE classes. You can go to the school district and ask them if we can teach rugby for a PE class for 5 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever their blocks are. And it's a fully developed curriculum that can get approved by the school board, and you can get your college players to go into the community and teach the game. Build up the players. Community education, go talk to the community. Chamber of Commerce and those kind of things, educate them. This is not, and I dislike the bumper sticker intensely, give blood, play rugby. It's a very common bumper sticker. Unfortunately, it came from a tournament in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the 80s, where they had a blood drive at the tournament. And the bumper sticker became, this is what rugby's about. You're going to donate your blood on the field. No, that's not my sport. It's a marketing opportunity. I talk to the businesses about it being an opportunity to partner with us to market your business, not a sponsorship opportunity. There's significant exposure. The team I coach in Abilene, ACU, we have been on TV multiple times. We have been televised live multiple times because it's very easy if a team is well developed to get to a level where you're going to be on TV. There's not hundreds of thousands of programs around the country. Small pool, big pond. Lots of very few fish, very big pond to play in. Community service, we encourage the players to get involved. Go and donate time. Go, we've had interest in Abilene. We have a Dancing with the Abilene Stars, and we've got 3 of our players that want to be the dancers on the Abilene Stars and raise money, but it's exposure for the university. So those opportunities. Expansion programs, go into the local communities, grow the programs. That's going to grow your feeder to the university. It's also going to give you the opportunity to reach out to the other universities in the area and say, this is what we're doing successfully. Why don't you do it as well? And we have localized competition. At the moment, out in Abilene, we travel to San Angelo, that's an hour and a half. Stevensville, Tolton State is 2 hours. And then after that, Nacogdoches, Stephen F. Austin, 1 million miles on the other side of the state. And that's a local game. It was a 9-hour drive for us to go to play them. So the state is very big. We need more teams locally. We've now got Texas Tech in Lubbock, 2 hours away. There's a new varsity program at Southern Nazarene University in Oklahoma City that's just started. This semester they just started. Universities are picking it up very, very quickly. This is a growing thing. What's needed? Get in or don't. Don't stick your toe in the water. There's just in the NCR, National College Rugby, there's 800 rugby programs. Only about 60 of them are what they classify as team sports. They fall under the athletic department. They have full college support for transportation, trainers, and those kind of things. The other 700 odd are a bunch of college students that want to just get together and play rugby, and they're very unsupported basic programs. Converting half of those would change the landscape completely. So fully committed, get in, do it correctly. Hire the best coach possible. I pitched this to my university and their comment was, we can't pay the rugby coach more than we're paying the football coach. My question was, when last did your football program make a profit? Wouldn't it pay you to pay the new program's coach a little bit more if we can show you that you'll break even in the first year? But they didn't get the message. No student from high school in Boston is going to come to Abilene for me as a coach. I'm not a big name. You need to hire the best coach you can, and they're not expensive. The one coach we had that was very interested in coming is the national coach for the Brazilian team. He wants to come to the United States and bring his family and be the coach. And he'll do it for $60,000. It's not an expensive proposition. You need a men's coach and a women's coach. You need an assistant coach for each, a strength and conditioning coach, and a tactical coach. So you've got 6 people. The director of rugby is a good idea because that's the marketing side and the administrative side, but it's normally the head coach of either men's or women's. Queen's University in Charlotte, it's the women's coach. She was a national team coach. She was a national team player. She coached the women's national team. Now she coaches in Charlotte. She's a director of rugby. You can combine them. So, financials. In year 5, you're looking at, and this is based on a university that has a tuition of $35,000 a year, sorry, $26,000 a year, and $11,000 a year in dorm fees. So 37,000 roughly in total expense. If you bring in the 120 students, you bring in 2.3 million. Your expense for the year based on our actual spreadsheet is 371. Revenue, net revenue per student, 21,000. Net cost, 3,900, less than $4,000 per student. You need 14 to break even for men and women. You need 15 players to make a team for men or women. So as long as you can field one team, you've broken even. Conclusion is, it's a great ROI. It's incredible retention, positive impact on Title IX. There are multiple success stories around the country. And the opportunity for the university to get in the media, TV, ESPN, those kind of levels of coverage is very easy. So it's all around a really positive impact on the university. It just takes someone to say, you know, let's do it. You'll either lead or you're going to follow, but it is going to happen. Do you want to be the leader in your area, or you want to be the one that's scrounging for seconds as you follow? That's the only question. Questions? So I was 100% clear.
Thank you so much for this.
Yes, sir.
Have you done some research on this massive 740-20 teams that are just stuck in the club status? Are those coming and going? I think in my own university, we had a rugby club team for a handful of years, and like you explained, there was really no coach. It was the kids that wanted to play, and I don't think I've seen that team in, I don't know, let's call it 6 years or so.
So here's the problem.
Yeah, what's going on there?
In order for a club to happen, the school requires it to be student-led. As we know, we require our students to come to class, and that's hard. Requiring them to have meetings, minutes, pass down rules and regulations, follow up on stuff, and train the next officers, impossible task. So what you end up with is peaks, 3 or 4 years, those kids graduate, and it drops. Perfect example, ACU. ACU had won 2 in 7 games when I came to Abilene in 19. It wasn't that they didn't have a coach, they had a coach. The coach was in the Air Force. The Air Force coach got transferred to another base on the other side of the country. You lost your coach, they started to falter. I moved to town, I said, do you need any help? They said, we need a coach. I said, fine. The first season of organized practices. And we started with 7 people. We didn't have a ton, we didn't do any recruiting. 7 people, and then the rest were all walk-ons. We finished 12th in the nation out of 280 small colleges when COVID shut it down. So we didn't get to play the final 16. But we made it to the top 16. We didn't get to go any further. That was 1 season of organized practice. Everything went well. COVID shut it down. We started practices up last fall. The school said, wow, you guys are great. We're going to give you more money, new jerseys, travel money, vans, all the rest. We're going to pay all their registration fees. We love what you're doing. We're behind you. We had 3 players show up for practice for 3 weeks. Because of the change of kids graduating, all the momentum had gone, and we have to start rebuilding from scratch. If you are running a program with a coach that is hired, and it's his job to recruit, and students come there for that sport, they're going to be more accountable. You'll be able to maintain. So a lot of these programs, they're going up and down, up and down. McMurry University had a rugby team in the 90s. Those players graduated and the team went away. A lot of that happens. I taught in a university in North Carolina, St. Andrews, in the 90s and early 2000s. They had a rugby team. Then those people graduated. What it takes is an organized leadership that's not players. That will make it sustain. That answer your question? Any others?
What do you think of the All Blacks in New Zealand? Not a big game.
They're not the champions. They're really good. Now, I can remember going back 13, 14 years old, and the big rivalry then was the Springboks and the All Blacks. We'd get up at 2 a.m. to watch the games live and all the rest. Fantastic players. They have a tremendous track record. They were unbeaten for 5 years. Not once. Unbeaten all the way through the 2 World Cups. Fantastic track record. Until the end. So, not saying anything, of course, but no, the All Blacks have a tremendous movement. They have a tremendous culture. South Africans have a tremendous culture. There's teams around the country, around the world that have the culture. And that's one of the things when we talk about community education. Rugby is not like American sports. Rugby is a player-led. When I go to a game, half an hour before the game, I turn it over to the captains and I leave. Stand on the sideline. No amount of coaching I can do in the next half hour is going to change the game. You guys have your captain, you have your vice captain, you have the strategy. Go play the game. Make decisions. At halftime, point out 1 or 2 things to the captain. He takes it to his team, and I sit back. There's nothing I can do. No yelling from the sideline or anything like that's going to change the game. So don't. Difference in culture. That's where the game is not just about playing the sport. I tell the students, remember, I am an employee of the club. I am here to teach you techniques and keep you organized. Don't like what I'm doing? Get another coach. But this is your club. You're not playing for me, you're playing for yourselves. Difference in culture. And the All Blacks exemplify with their haka, they lead into their games. It's intimidating, it's incredibly powerful. So they can't fault them. I have an All Blacks jersey. It hangs in the cupboard. I have one. Don't wear it. And of course, Ian is from Australia. We like to beat up on Australia. Every now and again, they beat us, but we have to let them get one. Any other questions? I really hope some universities look at this, read the paper, see what we're doing. I realized going to universities and asking them to try rugby wasn't working, so I thought the best way to get to academics was to write a paper and for academics. Maybe they'll believe. Hopefully we'll get it published and then they'll really believe.
Is there some best practices that you've seen from worldwide and university players in other countries? And is the United States trying to pick up on some of those things, or are they trying to reinvent the wheel?
The biggest problem with rugby in the United States is the national team's average age is 29 to 30. The average age in the top tier 1 countries, the top 10 countries, is 19 to 21. Rugby players in the United States are finding rugby in college. There's 2 growth points for rugby in the United States. Middle school, because the parents are still involved and have to take the kids to practice. And college, because they're there and they want something to do. And the colleges can fund it. If we can grow those 2 areas, we'll do what soccer did in the 70s and realize that if you get every little kid playing soccer from 5, 6, 7 years old, we'll build a feeder and a pipeline and a growth path that'll sustain the national team. Our national team is made up of college guys that figure out a new sport. It's not kids coming through from middle school saying, I want to play on the national team and getting there at 21. So that's, if we have to change anything, we have to grow youth rugby. And there's in multiple formats. There's girls rugby that we are starting a program. There's an organization called Girls Rugby, and they are a touch only for girls 1st through 8th grade, and they're encouraging girls to play rugby. It's a national organization, and they have 40-odd programs around the country, and they grow. I think last year they had 2,500 kids involved, and they have a good model. We need to do that with YMCAs and the Boys and Girls Clubs and all those organizations that are looking for something to do. It's an inexpensive sport, even at the community level. Anything else?
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So,